A short poem and a few words about the familiar and the unknown. By and by, you change, either withering and becoming bitter, falling deeper asleep and carrying the bags as they get heavier and heavier, or you deepen and mature, seeing, knowing, loving the movement of life, and recognizing the divine showing up in everything and everyone. One path hardens us, the other softens us. But the second path requires the courage to open mind and heart to what has been denied and avoided, to see truth where you have turned away, to say yes when there has been a no, and to accept what has been resisted. The first path is familiar. The second path is unknown. And that about sums it up, really, doesn't it? First path is familiar, but the second path is unknown. And that's where the trouble is for the mind. Only it's not. The first path is the troublesome path, because it's the first path that's the path of suffering, the path of habitual tendencies, really the path of shrinkage, the path that makes us bitter and comfortable even in the discomfort of the known and the habitual tendencies. You know, I've seen so many people, as I'm sure you have, who get older and if they don't just fall asleep, more asleep, they easily become hardened or even bitter, regretful, all of this stuff. You know, but the rut of one's life doesn't have to be a rut of one's life. The groove that has been carved is not necessarily fixed. It's not always just forever. It's not permanent. And at any point, at any age, at any moment, even unto death, do we get the chance to face the unknown. I mean, ultimately, it's funny, isn't it? Because we cling to the known and we cling to the known, even though it might cause distress. And then what happens as we die? The unknown. So there we are, holding on, clinging on, the known, the known, the known. You know, with so many kind of ideas and stories and inability to face the unknown. And yet we are called to face the alone at the 11th hour. So why not face the unknown now, at this hour? And open. Be willing. Be more willing to allow this unknownness of things. You know, what do we mean really by unknownness of things? It means that the rut carved down with the habitual responses. Yeah, when this happens, I do this. When this happens, I think this. When this happens, I automatically do X, Y, and Z. When this happens, I feel this inside and I'm familiar with it, and that's my response. Like almost automaton, almost robotic. It's a little bit demeaning, but it is a little bit like that. Whereas the path of the unknown is, you know, when when something happens, to actually step back, to hold back, to consciously not go along with the habitual tendency, to actually self-examine, to self-inquire, to stop, to pause. Is that what I really want? Just to go round and round and round in circles? I'm not a monkey. Why am I doing this? I'm not a robot. Why am I doing this? And there's the door, right? The door has to open somehow. This is the door of grace that opens for each one of us. And everybody who comes to our meetings has had that door bit open a little bit. There must be something more. You know, I'm fed up with the routine of my own thoughts. I'm tyrannized by the endless patterns of my thinking. All of this just goes on and on and on. So at some point, with grace, you know, nobody knows why that happens for one person and doesn't happen for another person. Nobody really knows that. I don't know that. But if it happens for you, and maybe it has happened for you, then the call is to allow yourself to start meeting the unknown and face what rises up. The unknown brings fear. The unknown brings the past. It brings the unresolved. The unknown brings anxiety. What if? It brings a certain sense of insecurity, existential, emotional insecurity. But they're the true things. You know, they're the truth of what's actually going on, rather than the habitual avoidance of anything as we cling to the life raft of a certainty that actually doesn't even exist. The habitual, you know, ruts of feeling secure in an insecure experience. Because life is not in our control. Despite what we do, despite what we think, and despite what we hope, and despite how much we cling to the raft of certainty and control, it's not in our control. And we either get to face that, or we kind of hide away from it as much as we can. But there it is at death. It's a tough call. Once you've made a decision, once you've opened the door and made the decision that the unknown world, as vast as it is preferable with all of its, even with all of its, you know, fear or anxiety or vulnerability, is preferable to the small box of the known, the small box of the prison of certainty. Once you've seen that, and something has happened within, where that becomes preferable, then something is really activated. Something profound is activated within you, and that profound activation then starts to work itself in you. It starts to work its magic in you, and then something starts happening, because then you develop a sort of, you know, more warrior-like sort of stance, more warrior-like attitude towards your life. A warrior, you know, of willingness, the courage, develop a courage, because you've seen that this is just an endless stream of ruts that just keeps us locked in. And actually the soul of most people, certainly, you know, the ones who've been touched by the grace of an opening, you know, the soul calls for this. The soul longs for this. The soul wants to know this truth. Truth. Soul wants the truth. That's what it seeks. And we either turn away and ignore that, Or else eventually you hear that voice say, yeah, yes. Enough with the no. Enough with the withering and the hardening and the turning to stone. And yes, to the softening, to the willingness, to the openness, to the surrender, to the courage, to the great softening. So I don't know, but I'm willing to go and find out. I'm willing to follow my soul rather than my tyrannous mind. I'm willing to follow my soul. There's a great trust in that. There's a great and beautiful trust in that.